I'm just going to start talking about the general plot of Thumbelina from the beginning, because the moral of Thumbelina is basically that it is better to be unhappy and married than unmarried and happy. So, what happens in the movie Thumbelina is that Thumbelina is born and found by a full-grown woman, and the full-grown woman's like, cool, you're gonna live with me. And Thumbelina's like, cool, I'm gonna have a cool life. Lives with this woman. Thumbelina is in her bedroom at night dancing one day when a prince peeps into her bedroom window in the middle of the night.
She gets peeped.
And the prince is like, yo, she's hot, I'm gonna marry her. As you do. Mm-hmm. So he breaks into her room without her noticing and without asking if he can enter. Breaks into her room in the middle of the night, goes behind her favorite book that she is dancing to. It's a long story.
Yeah.
Cuts open one of the illustrations of the page, and that's how he reveals himself, is to be like, haha, I've been here.
I've broken into your home.
I've broken into your home and ruined your favorite book. And then he's like, come on a ride with my bumblebee and me. So he takes her, puts her on the bumblebee. They fly away together while he's singing, basically like, I'm so cool.
Oh, that song from Camp Rock.
Yeah. And at the end of the bumblebee ride, she gets off.
It's a lot of shoulder motion going on.
She gets off the bee and she's like, I found my man. I am in love with this man. I'm going to marry this man. The prince leaves to go tell his parents that he's found his future wife. And Thumbelina's like, cool, I'm going to go to sleep so that in the morning you can come back and come get me and we'll go get married, even though I've met you for approximately 3.5 minutes. So in the night, she gets kidnapped by 4 frogs. 4 performing frogs.
Oh, I hate when that happens.
So then Thumbelina wakes up and she's like, yo, wait, this ain't my house. And the female frog comes out and she's like, yeah, well, you should work for us and because you have a cool voice. Let's perform together. And by let's perform together, I mean you have no choice but to perform for me so that we can earn money. And then also by the end of the night, you have to marry my son. So Thumbelina's like, I don't want this. And the frogs are like, we don't really care. So Thumbelina has to perform, sing, dance, do all this hubbub. The frog she's betrothed to comes out. He's real creepy. Thumbelina escapes. She bumbles into a beetle.
Voiced by
Gilbert Godfrey.
Gilbert Godfrey,
Oh,
yes.
No.
Mr. Beetle.
Not Mr. Beetle.
Mr. Beetle.
Mr. Sings.
From Ohio?
Oh my god, live action Thumbelina starring Matthew Morrison.
So
I'm sorry, keep going.
Mr. Beetle comes out and is like, oh my god, you're beautiful. Smoochy smooch. And then he starts kissing her and Thumbelina's saying no. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. I just can't behave myself. And she's like, oh, that's bad. And he's like, but it's because you're beautiful. And she's like, oh my god, you think I'm beautiful? So she's now like, yeah, this sounds great. I love this guy because he complimented me once. And he's like, you should work for me. So Thumbelina goes on stage to perform for Mr. Beetle. Mr. Beetle starts, he like rips off her costume, so she's wearing her like normal clothes underneath, and all the bugs are like, oh my god, she's not a bug, she's ugly. And this is the first time in the whole movie where Thumbelina thinks about anything and she's like, they don't like me, they think I'm ugly. And this is the first time she is upset in the whole movie. It's because they called her ugly. So
Same.
she runs away. Oh, at some point also, she says, doesn't anybody care what I think? And the rest of the movie proves the answer to that is no. So Thumbelina runs away, almost dies because it's cold out there.
Oh, yeah, it's
Meanwhile,
cold.
her prince is trying to save her. This is a thing that Nathan brought up when I was talking about it earlier today. The prince freezes in ice.
Good for him.
So now all the bugs think that the prince is dead. Thumbelina is rescued by a field mouse. The field mouse says that The prince has been found ice cold dead in the ground, is what she says. So now Thumbelina's upset, and the field mouse is like, nah, it's okay. Let's go meet Mr. Mole. She now has to perform for Mr. Mole by telling a whole story. And at the end of the story, Mr. Mole's like, wow, that story was really great. Let's take a tour of my mansion. They take a tour of the mansion. Thumbelina finds her only friend who she thinks is dead. Not the prince, just her bird friend. And now she's mourning over the corpse of her possibly dead friend. And Mr. Mole's like, yeah, I want to marry Thumbelina. I'll give you gold to set it up, Field Mouse. So then Field Mouse does a whole song and dance to convince Thumbelina to marry Mr. Mole. And the Field Mouse is like, well, what else are you going to do? Marry Mr. Mole. He'll just make sure you're taken care of. And Thumbelina's like, I guess. So then she goes to marry him.
Because she'll marry anybody.
She'll marry anybody.
She does not care.
So now she's walking on an aisle that is made out of a sword. It's very cool. That's the only cool thing in the whole movie, is that the aisle is literally a sword. And while she's there, she starts seeing like the ghost of the prince. Even though the prince is alive, he's just being de-thawed. And she's like, I can't marry Mr. Mole. I'm betrothed to my love, the prince, the guy I met for 3.5 minutes. So she runs away. A bunch of the bugs are de-thawing the prince. They de-thaw the prince. The prince comes back and he's like, no, we were married together. We were supposed to get married. And she was like, yeah, you're right. And then the two of them get married, and that's the end of the movie.
We did it.
This is the movie. Love wins.
Listening to you recount all of Thumbelina caused me immense psychic damage.
Yes. It's just her getting kidnapped and forced to marry a guy like 4 times.